This presentation is on the comparison of methods for identifying bobcats to individual at road mitigation structures. Highways in the Texas lower Rio Grande Valley are a major source of mortality for the U.S. endangered ocelot only found here in South Texas. So the Texas DOT constructed 9 wildlife crossing structures and fencing on FM 106 as mitigation, as seen in the map to the right. Due to the lack of data collected on ocelots, bobcats can often be used as a surrogate species for research. These cats' unique spot pattern may allow for identification to individual and provide insight into how these individuals move and behave within the landscape. This study will examine and compare 2 methods for IDing bobcats to individual: manual visual ID and the spot pattern recognition program HotSpotter. Our objective was to determine which ID method is most successful and practical for IDing bobcats to individual. We believe that HotSpotter can be used successfully to identify bobcats to individual with minimal supplementing from visual ID. Our camera trap array included Reconyx camera traps to capture bobcat interactions at wildlife crossing structures, fence ends, and right-of-ways for a total of 94 cameras. The efficiency and accuracy of visual ID and HotSpotter were analyzed using photos of bobcat interactions taken from these sites. For visual ID, 3 bobcat interaction events were randomly selected for each month of the year from December 2019 to April 2021, including 48 interactions. Inner and outer leg markings were deemed points of interest and were the most striking and easily identifiable parts of bobcats. These IDs were confirmed by comparing 2 to 3 other distinct patterns on the body and confirmed by another reviewer. A photo database of ID'd bobcats was then created and tested with the program HotSpotter. When visually comparing raw images, these are 4 example photos that we would receive from the cameras. Upon closer look of this inner leg point of interest, we can see that the spot pattern is the same in all of these photos, and after confirming other body part points of interest, we can say that this is the same bobcat. For the results of visual ID, of the 48 interactions, 20 distinct individuals were identified in 41 of them. 7 interactions were unable to be identified due to poor photo quality, low number of photos for that interaction, or poor angle for looking at these points of interest. 316 photos from the 48 bobcat interactions that were visually ID'd were then uploaded to HotSpotter. Chips were created using rectangular selections around distinct spot patterns on each photo, creating 490 chips. HotSpotter results. Queries run on each chip identified, ranked, and scored the top 6 matching chips. True results created an array of yellow, orange, and red lines drawn between the chips to identify points that match among the patterns. False results created no match found among chips, and you could see a red X through these photos. HotSpotter also requested that some chips be deleted due to clarity, and a query was not able to be run on these chips. A database of chips and query results were compared to visually ID'd, aka confirmed bobcats. Chip query results for HotSpotter showed that 60% of them were false, 26% of them were true, and 14% of chips needed to be deleted. Upon further analysis of these results, of the 26% that HotSpotter deemed true, 18% of those matches were from ground to ground, or from bobcat to ground, deeming them non-usable. 3% were mismatches, aka a matching from a bobcat whisker to an inner leg, for example. And 3% of them were true, however, were not confirmed by visual ID. Only 2% of those were true matches confirmed by visual ID. As for visual ID results, 85% of bobcats were able to be identified, and 15% were not able to be identified due to the reasons just previously described, such as low photo quality or low number of photos. For visual ID, 20 bobcat individuals were able to be identified. Results showed that visual ID was the most successful method for identifying bobcats to individual. We would like to determine an ID of bobcats that perform risky behavior such as jumping fences. Are there a few individuals, or is this a common behavior? We would also like to determine the relative population size of bobcats around these mitigation structures. Could high numbers of bobcats be deterring ocelot use? We also want to ID bobcats to individual on adjacent roads and compare these populations. Are any of them seen on both of the roads? Usefulness of occupancy-abundance relationships and spatiotemporal patterns will also be assessed in the future.